This is the terrifying visual of what America is going to look like. It's the terrifying visual that children are giving birth to children. They're being forced to against their will.
All right, that was one of several pro-abortion activists illegally protesting outside Justice Amy Coney Barrett's home in Virginia over the weekend. Meanwhile, the radical group Jane's Revenge, which has taken responsibility for multiple attacks on pro-life centers around the country, is planning what they call a night of rage when the Supreme Court ruling finally comes down. Joining us now to see what we should expect from the ruling is former law clerk to Justice Thomas and president of the Judicial Crisis Network, Carrie Severino. Carrie, great to get to you. Before I get to the case, though, here's what I want to ask you. Those protests outside of Amy Coney Barrett's home, it is illegal to do that in Virginia. It is illegal to do that federally, as far as the non-lawyer in me reads what the statute says. Why is nothing being done either by Virginia cops or DOJ to protect the home and arrest people, not make it safe? If it's illegal, why aren't they being arrested?
Yeah, I think that is the question on everyone's mind. I mean, as far as the federal side goes, I think there has been a clear message from the top, from Joe Biden himself, that these type of protests have effectively been encouraged by the White House. You had Jen Psaki originally saying, well, yeah, we encourage peaceful protests. And well, he at least did put out a statement. He hasn't talked about Kavanaugh's would-be assassin, but at least put out a statement saying, okay, we're not for assassination. Yay. He still is one willing to say you shouldn't be protesting in front of people's houses, despite the fact that it violates federal law to attempt to intimidate justices about cases. So this is the president's job to enforce federal law, and he's simply choosing not to do it in this case. Well,
I agree. Somebody should be arrested. I mean, if it's against the law, it's against the law. But again, the left seems to love to pick and choose what laws they get to do this. So obviously right now, all eyes are on the court about when this Dobbs versus Jackson ruling is going to come down. So I want to ask you a bunch of things. Like, when do you expect it? Like, is this like any Tuesday or Thursday? And secondly, there's a report out in Politico this morning that suggests that John Roberts could potentially be crafting some kind of compromise. Here's what I don't get. The leaked draft has 5 people on it, 5 justices. Why would any of them cave after already putting their names on a draft that supports the turnover of Roe v. Wade?
Yeah, so as far as when to expect it, it could be tomorrow. There's cases coming out tomorrow and Thursday and then next Monday. So, you know, we expect it could be any of those days. They could even extend the term slightly farther because there are still 17 cases to come, which is a pretty fast clip to get these last few out. But I would expect it within this week or next week. As to the compromise, that's something John Roberts has been trying to do since December at the oral arguments, at least. The biggest problem with that compromise is there is no good legal grounds for it. And parties on both sides of this case, 100% of the parties involved said there is no middle ground. There's no way you can keep the Mississippi. Yeah, you can't keep the Mississippi law and keep Roe.
But also, why would you? Your name is already on there. Yeah, it makes no sense. So, Carrie, I always appreciate you coming on and explaining the nuances of the court, what's going on. So I'd love to make sure that we have you back on when this decision comes out to explain it, because I think there's going to be a lot of people trying to interpret what exactly it means. Always appreciate your insight. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
All right, we are following breaking news out of Israel. The current government there has collapsed, sending the country back to the polls for the 5th time in 3 years. Joining us with reaction is Ambassador Danon, Israel's 17th permanent representative to the United Nations. Ambassador, always good to see you. I want to ask, so what does this mean? You have this power-sharing agreement between Naftali Bennett and Yair Lapid. What does this mean, and you know, who's going to come out on top of this thing?
Thank you for having me. I think it's good news for the Israeli people. This government was a weak government, and from the beginning we felt it's not working because you had elements from the far left, radical liberals, collaborating with the far right. Basically, they only had one thing in common, that was a desire to push Prime Minister Netanyahu out of office. But above that, they couldn't achieve much, they couldn't agree on any substance, and that's why today we saw that they collapsed a little bit more than a year since the day they put this government together. It means, Sean, that we are heading for another elections. Prime Minister Netanyahu will be the candidate of my party, the Likud party, and we believe that this time, after the public saw how bad this government was, we will receive enough votes to form a stable government.
So that's what I was going to ask you. So is this the comeback of Netanyahu, and what's the likelihood that he can put together enough of a coalition to get what he needs to get back in?
Well, I think that will be a strong comeback if we'll get the votes. But I hope that people will come out and participate in the elections, because what happened last time, people were fed up and they stayed home.
Yeah.
And look what we received. And I think now, after a year, we saw that, the economy is not so great. The internal security issues are not so good. I believe that this time they will come, they will vote, and will be able to have a strong showing in the polls and establish a strong government led by the Likud party.
So when I asked you before, like, where does it go from here? I know Naftali Bennett has stepped down as prime minister. When does the election get called? Like, and when would that be? So, I mean, if they call it, is there a time period?
So we know it will be in the fall. We have the Jewish high holidays in this year. It will be in October. So the main question, it will be either right before the holidays in September or after the holidays in late October. We will decide about it next week in the Knesset. But I can tell you that in the fall, we're going to have another elections. Hopefully this time there will be a clear decision about what the public wants.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. 5 and 3 years, is that what you guys have had?
Yes, it sounds ridiculous. Our system is not perfect. Sometimes I look at your system, you have a lot of flaws, but at least you know that you have every 2 years, you have elections to the Congress, every 4 years to the president. I wish it will be the same in Israel, but we are a strong, vibrant democracy, and we appreciate the fact that we have a strong democracy.
Real quick, so where does Naftali Bennett go? What is his career done, or does he try to make a comeback of some sort?
So I think he has a serious problem now, because he lost the confidence of the voters on the right the minute he joined the coalition with the left. So he cannot get votes from the right, and the left will not vote for him because they used him. I think he has two options. One is to retire, maybe to take a break from politics. The second option is to join forces with Lapid to become number 2 or number 3 in his party. I think in the next few days he will have to come to the public and explain his next steps.
Okay. Ambassador, always great. Love the insight. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
All right. Still ahead, it's being called a major abuse of power. The Biden administration is reportedly set to punish the mounted Border Patrol who were cleared of wrongdoing. More on that when we return.